Hello guys, I'm Bethany and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my April wrap up. So I'm going to tell you all the books that I read in April. I feel like it was a pretty good reading month. I feel like all the books that I read I enjoyed, but half of these books I read in the first week. So as you can tell, I was kind of in a slump because I just didn't want to pick up a book I didn't want to read. I don't really know what was going on, but I finally finished a book and then read a few more in like the next couple weeks. So this is a pretty good reading month. I mean, I read 10 books. That's a lot of books, but like 5 of them I literally read in the first week. I don't know how this happened, but here we are. It's not about how many books you read a month. It's really about if they were good, the quality of them, and I feel like I read some good books. So I'm excited to share them with you. And let's just get started. So first, I read some on my Kindle. I read The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and I really love this book. I got an ARC of it. It comes out, why don't I start writing these down? I don't know. June 27th. It comes out June 27th, and I really enjoyed it. She wrote The Dead Romantics, which I really enjoyed. It's a magical realism where the main character falls in love with a ghost, which is very different from something I would read, but I really enjoyed it, and so I was very excited to read this one. It's about this girl named Clementine, and she is a book publicist, and she inherited this apartment in New York City from her aunt, and one day she meets this guy in her apartment that is living 7 years in the past. So quite an ordeal, but I really loved it. I think Ashley Poston's writing is so good. Like, I don't know how she does it, but her writing is so good. I'm obsessed with it. I truly didn't want to put this book down. I had to know what was gonna happen. I had to keep reading. This book does touch on grief, but I feel like it's more focused on like hope than sadness, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was very well done. There's obviously magical realism in it, which I usually don't read, but I really enjoy it. I just love Ashley Poston's writing, and I feel like her storytelling is just so good. So I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.75 stars. So clearly loved it so much. Highly recommend it. You should read it when it comes out, and I feel like if you love The Dead Romantics, you definitely love this book. Okay, then I did reread some books. So I reread Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez because yours truly came out in April, and I just needed to, you know, have a refresher. This is about a doctor named Alexis. She lives in like this big city, and she is on her way home from a funeral and stops in this small town and meets Daniel, who is a carpenter, and they kind of, you know, connect, but they're obviously from 2 different worlds, and so you kind of just see what happens. I love this book, obviously. I reread it, so clearly I really enjoyed it the first time. I gave it 5 stars the first time I read it, but I think I enjoyed it more the second time, if that's possible. It's just so good. I feel like everyone's talking about this book, everyone loves it, and it is really incredible. I loved it so much. In my notes I wrote, I wish all books gave me this feeling, so clearly loved it so much. I love Daniel. He was just the sweetest. So there you go. And then I read another ARC, Our Final Love Song by N.S. Perkins. I loved this book so much. Like, I literally flew through it, couldn't put it down, read it very quickly. It is coming out June 20th. So you should totally pre-order it, add it to your TBR. It is going to be on Kindle Unlimited, I'm pretty sure, but it's just so good. I loved all of N.S. Perkins' books, and this one was no exception. It was very much like a summer romance, which I loved, and it's definitely giving Camp Rock vibes. If you like Camp Rock as a kid, you would love this book. I literally said that in my vlog or like in my review or something, and then she posted on her Instagram that was kind of some inspiration behind the book. So you should read it if you like Camp Rock. It's basically about this couple, Emma and Jamie, and they are kind of struggling in their relationship, and they're on their way to a camp for musicians. They both play the piano, and basically kind of like relationship is just rocky, and then they get to the camp and they were back in time a year, and they're just trying to get back to the present, but also like trying to rekindle the relationship. Jamie's trying to win Emma back, and it was just so sweet. Jamie, like, I cannot with him. He was so sweet, but like him like pining after Emma, I just couldn't handle it. Like, I loved it so much. And I love a like relationship in crisis, like second chance romance with a couple that's already in a relationship. I just love that. Like, I eat it up. I feel like it's so much more relatable and interesting. Also, the found family in this book was really good, and I just loved it. Truly couldn't get enough of it. I got sent the ARC, and I was so excited that I could not put it down. So I gave it 5 stars because it was just so good. Also, I have not been giving spice ratings, so, or spice, whatever. The 7-Year Slip has a little bit of spice, I think. Part of Your World has a little bit of spice, and Our Final Love Song has a little bit of spice. So there you go. Next, I reread Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. If you don't know, I read this in September and fell in love with it. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Like, in the top 3, literally. Won't shut up about this book, so I had to reread it. I actually reread my ARC of it. I got a physical ARC and an e-ARC, and I am honored, but I did pre-order it so I could have like the final version, and it's beautiful. I'm obsessed. and it's just so good. Like, you need to read it. It's about Alexis's best friend Bree and another doctor named Jacob. Bree's a doctor and Jacob's a doctor, and it touches on anxiety. Jacob has anxiety, so you see the descriptions of that. Bree's just like spunky, and I just love their dynamic, and it was just so good. Like, I loved it so much the second time. I couldn't put it down. Like, I literally knew what was gonna happen, but I had to keep reading. So you should read this. It's so good, but I would recommend reading Part of Your World and then Yours Truly, but both incredible. So 5 stars. One of my favorites of all time. Then I read Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. I actually tried reading this maybe a year or 2 ago, and the beginning is quite like rough, but I was talking to my friend about it, and she loves this book, and she was like, it gets better. It's not like that the whole book. So I was like, I'm gonna try it again. I borrowed it from the library on my Libby app, and I loved it so much that I bought the physical copy. And I wasn't a fan of the cover before I read the book, but since I've read the book, the cover makes sense, and I'm obsessed with the cover. So basically this is about Bea, and something happens in her family, and she has to move in with her dad, like move from Kentucky to Texas. And her father's rich, has a new wife and a daughter, and while she's there, she meets Samson, who is a neighbor, very rich, like that kind of vibe, and she like doesn't want anything to do with him because there's been a lot of trauma in her life, so she's like basically avoiding everyone, and you just see her deal with her trauma and just everything that's happened in her life, and just like make connections with other people. And it was just so good. Like, Colleen Hoover is always going to make you feel something. I feel like she's so good. Like, you can't tell me that she's not a good like storyteller, because her books are always gonna make you feel something. If you want an emotional romance, I definitely recommend this one. I feel like it's a very underrated Colleen Hoover book, and I loved it so much. It was just so good. It's also very short. I think it's like less than 300 pages. She's just so good at emotional romances and like teaching you something. I feel like every time I read one of her books, I like learn something new about a situation that I have never been in, and I just gain insight into people in different circumstances as me. And I think that's such a beautiful thing that like we need in life, because I feel like sometimes we can be so tunnel vision on only seeing the way that we lived when we grew up, but there's so many different scenarios in life that people go through, and I feel like she's so good at like telling those stories, and like you just gain the insight of the character. And it was just such a beautiful story about hope and healing and forgiveness and finding yourself, and I just loved it so much. It reminded me of why I love to read, just like the feeling it gave me. I think honestly it's gonna be one of my favorites of the year, because I just loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars. I had so many 5 stars this month because I just loved it. I like could not put it down. I wanted to keep reading, and I just can't wait to reread this copy. Okay, next I read some fantasy. So I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This has been literally everywhere. Sarah and Destiny read it, and I feel like now everyone is reading it. And I'm pretty sure this was her book club pick, Sarah's book club pick for April in her Patreon. And so I decided to buy it because I couldn't get it on Libby. Like, I didn't have it. They didn't have it on Libby. Anyway, so I bought the physical copy, and I did enjoy this book. Well, first let me tell you what it's about. It's basically about this girl named Evangeline, and she believes in true love, happy endings, and it's like a fairy tale type, like the vibes are fairy tale, you know what I mean? And she basically has a broken heart, and to stop the wedding of this guy that she's in love with, she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, and you just kind of see the story go from there. If that makes any sense. I feel like it's so hard to explain as fantasy, but this is definitely like a fairy tale fantasy, and it is after the Caraval series, and I did not read that, and I still like understood the book. So if you haven't read that, I still would like think you could go into this and you'll be fine. Like, it might just take a few pages to understand what's going on, but then you're good. The first half of this book, I was like not really sure about it, but the second half was pretty good, and it made me want to pick up the second book. And like the fairy tale vibe was fun. I feel like there's just like lots of things going on, like twists and turns that happen, which I enjoyed. So I gave this 4 stars. And then I picked up the second book, The Ballad of Never After, and honestly it literally took me a week to finish this book. I don't know what was going on, but I just like was not interested. I feel like the first half was very slow, but what saved this book was the second half, and also what saved this book was Jax. He saved this book for me, literally like made me enjoy this, because I feel like it was just like so slow at the beginning. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just me. I just like had no interest in picking it up, but I finally did and finished it. And the end literally wrecked me. Like, I finished this and kept thinking about it for like a week after, because I just could not with the end of this book, and I am very excited for the third one. I feel like that one is set up to be a 5-star read, and I have very high hopes for it. I gave this 4.5 stars only because the ending was so good. Like, the second half, like I wish the first half was as good as the second half, because the first half was a little slow, but the second half it was great. Like when we get to the romance, it's so good. Like it was just so good. Also, I don't know if I said, there's very minimal spice in Heartbones, and this is a YA fantasy, I'm pretty sure, so there's no spice in it. Also, there's a few like very minor details that reminded me of the Shatter Me series. If you've read the whole Shatter Me series and also read these 2 books, DM me because I want to talk about it with someone. There's a few very minor details that remind me of the Shatter Me series that are like not any major plot, literally just like a few sentences that just remind me of that. And there's also something that's coming in the 3rd book that I think is going to be like the Shatter Me series. Anyways, I did really enjoy it, but it took me forever to finish this, but I'm so glad I did because the end was incredible and wrecked me, and I don't know what to do with myself. I need the 3rd book right now. And apparently it's pushed back a month. What the heck? Anyways. Okay, let's continue. Next, I read a couple on my Kindle. So I read Maggie Moves On by Lucy Score. So basically this book is about Maggie, who is a YouTuber, but she flips houses. So she's flipping houses and like filming the whole process. And she ends up in Idaho and is renovating this house. And she meets Silas, who is the carpenter on this project. And you know, you just see what happens. This is a long book. It's like over 500 pages. I feel like all of Lucy Score's books are very long, but there is like a little bit of a mystery in there, so it kind of makes sense why it's so long. And I feel like because it was so long, you just like really are hanging out with the characters, like you're just vibing, living, laughing, loving with these characters, and I just had a great time. I gave it 4.25 stars, so I really enjoyed it. And I feel like these books you have to like really like just immerse yourself in the experience that it's going to be a long book. Like you just have to like vibe truly, because it is long. It's not going to be 300 pages, but I feel like that helps you like gain like connection to the characters because you're literally reading them for so long. So I did really enjoy it. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of spice in this book, but if you know Lucy Score, you already know that. So someone recommended this to me on Instagram, one of my friends. Let me find her Instagram name. Her name is Palmer and her Instagram name is pbookmarked, and she recommended this book to me because I posted about I Can Fix That and said I really love carpenters and books. So she recommended this book and it was great. Highly recommend it. If you like a carpenter in a book, you will enjoy this book because Silas is great. And I loved how he was like very upfront with his intentions. He was like saying what he wanted, but not being like too pushy. Like I love when a guy is like assertive, not in a bad way, but like he's just gonna come up to you and he's gonna say like, I'm interested in you, and like not beat around the bush. I love that. I think if he's beating around the bush, you need to kick him out because you deserve more than that. But yeah, I feel like I was hanging out with the characters. It was great. Highly recommend. And then I read A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kimmerer. This was recommended by Allie, my friend Allie Renee Reads. I don't know why. I was about to say Allie Hazelwood. No. It was recommended by my friend Allie Renee Reads on Instagram and BookTube, and I really enjoyed this book. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's a YA fantasy. It was great. I highly recommend it. The romance was good. The plot was really interesting. I haven't really read a Beauty and the Beast retelling besides ACOTAR. This one's so much better than ACOTAR, but honestly, that is not really the main plot of ACOTAR. Like, anyways, this is like Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's in this castle and in this like, you know, fairy tale land with this curse happening. Anyways, it was really good. I really enjoyed it and I loved all the characters. It was fast paced, the romance was great, and I was on the edge of my seat at the end. So highly recommend. Also, I'm gonna need to drink water because my throat is scratchy. Alrighty, and the last book that I read in April was Happy Place by Emily Henry. And I did a whole reading vlog on this book, so if you want to hear my thoughts, like all in depth, me reading it, I will link that video below because I really dive deep into this. The video is so long because I could not shut up. So I will just tell you, this is my favorite book of the month, one of my favorite books of the year, 5 stars, incredible. Emily Henry's best book, the best writing, my favorite book of hers, literally so good. Like it lives up to the hype. Like if you're seeing these hypes on Instagram or like people hyping it up on Instagram, like it's true. Like this book wrecked me and like I don't know how to move on from here. Like I truly am not sure. Like I don't know what to do. I don't know how to like continue on without like picking this book up and like rereading it and thinking about the characters. Like I genuinely don't know. But basically this is about Harriet and Wynne, and they broke up, but they are going on a vacation with, there's an ant on my window. Hold on a minute. Lovely, I don't know where it went. Okay, well, anyways. Okay, well, back to it. So they're going on a vacation with their friends, but their friends don't know they broke up, so they're like fake dating. Okay, so literally getting so distracted, but this is just so much more than a romance. It's about friendship and growing up and nostalgia and like reminiscing and all the things. It's literally so good. It reminds me why I love to read. Like literally I will never forget this book and I will be shoving it into anyone's hands. So hi, if you're new here, this is my favorite book right now. Please read it. Okay, so I'm gonna shut up because I talked extensively about it in my blog. So if you want to hear my thoughts, you can go watch it. But basically I loved it so much. It's incredible. Like literally can't stop thinking about it. So there you go. That's all the books I read in April. I feel like I had a pretty good month. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you read in April. I would love to hear. But I think that's it for this video. So I shall see you when I see you in my next video very, very soon. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.